Today, I'm joined by John Newhouse, who is the boss man of Rosebery Newhouse, an estate agent from Teesside in the north. John and his team won the Best Estate Agent Guide at the EA Masters in 2024. I've known John for 7 or 8 years, so I thought I'd invite him down to the Watkin sofa to talk about his story as an estate agent, what he's learnt on the way, the ups and the downs, the fears and the frustrations, the hopes and the dreams. So you can learn from him. Thanks for joining me today, John.
Pleasure.
I want to talk about you as an estate agent, but before we talk about you as an estate agent, let's go all the way back. And when were you born? And tell me a little bit about your parents.
Born in 1967, birthday coming up this very week. Originally from Stokeley in North Yorkshire. Parents had retail business, went away to school, and then subsequently went on to, I call it university, but it was Polytechnic at the time, and did a estate management course.
Well, let's go back. When you say retail, does that mean your pocket money was stocked when you were 9 years old and thrown in doing all the hard work?
Yes, and away straight away at 11, yeah.
Did you enjoy that?
No, not to begin with.
What kind of retail was that?
My grandparents had a department store. She subsequently became Debenhams in the 60s. That was quite a big store in Middlesbrough. And then my father was an accountant by trade, but he set up a music business. He had a music store during my sort of childhood. And
is that sheet music or records?
It was everything. So instruments, vinyl early on, and all the
Was it the old days? You used to be able to go into a little booth and they put the set record on.
The ground floor was a huge vinyl. It was great as a team getting all the vinyl. Then upstairs you had clothes with all the outrageous stuff of the 80s. It was all good.
Did you enjoy it?
Yeah.
What did you learn from your dad growing up that's helped you in the now? So
he was he was hardworking, very honest. He did sort of instill principle. So his principles are very much be as the person that you would want others to see you as.
Have you still got your mum and dad with?
So I got my mum, who celebrated her 80th this weekend, so she's going strong. My father passed away 20 years ago just as we opened, really.
So your father was, normally accountants are very structured, very process-driven. Does that describe your dad quite well?
I think he was an unnatural accountant. He was sort of pushed to be an accountant by his parents to join the business with a qualification, and then my grandfather died before I was born, so he'd sort of already passed away, and then hence the business sort of was sold. But he wanted my father to have his own way, but he was an unnatural accountant, I would say. His passion was not necessarily music. He couldn't play an instrument, so music sort of was. He bought a business in Middlesbrough and took it over, and
What did you learn from your mum growing up?
My mother is a very formidable character. She was, ruled with a iron rod in the day, but huge. When you go on training courses and they say who's the person you look up to most, a bit boringly, I probably would say my mother. She was very loving, and it was a good childhood.
Loving, but with a steeliness that if you overstep the mark.
Yeah, you didn't cross the line.
Did you have any brothers and sisters?
Got a brother, yeah.
Just older or younger?
Younger.
So as you were growing up, did you know what you wanted to be? I know you ended up at which Polytechnic did you go to? Newcastle.
Yeah.
The estate management. I actually went for an interview. I applied for that course. I ended up in Sheffield?
I went to Sheffield for the interview.
There you go.
I can't remember whether I got offered, but I went to Newcastle as a preference. Yeah.
As you were growing up, did you know what you wanted to be?
Not really. I went to boarding school, and then was doing A-levels, and I think actually we went to a careers evening, and my parents were not impressed when the careers person suggested I could be a hairdresser. Money well spent. And then a friend of mine, his father had an estate agency business in Stokesay, which ironically I took over when I moved back up north. And so he had an estate agent business, and we were at school together, and he sort of said, he went to Leicester, off to do estate management. And, the numbers needed to get onto the estate management course were reasonable. So A-levels, just to say, was enough points to go on to do estate management. And that's what it did.
It was just a degree.
Yeah, it was a little bit. I didn't really know. But I started with estate management a little bit at that time in this sort of, so that was 85, 87. And most of the businesses in the north, corporates were starting in the south a little bit, but in the north, it was very much partner-led still. So you probably needed to be RSES to be anything. So there wasn't really a negotiator role as such then. So I started off with the intent perhaps to do RSES. I found it as boring as anything, and quickly decided that wasn't the path.
You still did your degree though, didn't you?
I did it was an HND, but I don't call it that anymore. And then as soon as I finished that, which was in 87, I went straight down to London, because that's really where the jobs were at the time. Joined Countrywide in their Richmond office, and that was by pure chance. My mate at Newcastle was doing a sandwich year effectively, and he got a job in London, so I thought, I'll come to London with you. So I somehow ended up with a job in Richmond. £4,300 was the salary, no commission, horrible place. And within my first week that the manager left to set up, I think, it was pretty much here's an applicant box, start ringing people.
Not a hot box.
Yeah, the good old hot box. And I'd looked at the phone, looked at the hot box, and what do you do here? And then within 3 months...
there might be some young people watching this. What is a hot box? Because we're all as oldies with grey hair.
Yeah.
This reverence of this hot box.
Yeah, and a hot box. I mean, I would still advocate almost having a hot box for buyers, because most CRM systems are so lifeless in who the client is. In the good day, we had an applicant card,
Perspex box, probably about that sort of
A to Z.
Yeah, that sort of size. Like half a loaf size, cut that way, opened up with bits of paper.
Yeah. Mr. Watkin's address, and we would put the notes on the back to say, got 2 kids, Billy and Johnny, and looking, etc., etc. And so we had detail on people. So when you rang them, there was substance and that kind of thing. And that was divided between sort of hot buyers and property to sell and so that was straight in. In the 80s, we was boom when I started.
Yes, 87, because 88 was the peak. It dropped off, but
so
87 it was rocking and rolling.
Yeah. So we were working from 8 in the morning till 9 at night. I mean, I absolutely loved it. We were just here, there, and everywhere. There was no, 7 days a week. Still about 7. Opening hours was 7, but we were still working beyond. Within 3 months, I was the senior neg in the office and started to get some commission. 6 months later, I was a manager of a different office, fast-tracked through.
But you were a manager at the age of 19 or 20?
Yeah.
That's unheard of today, isn't it?
Yeah, I think that was the rate that they kept off. I was a manager, and I stayed with Countrywide until an unhappy ending in that.
That was in 89. What happened?
In 89, I came back from holiday, and my senior neg rang and said, just to let you know, there's someone new sat at your desk when you come in tomorrow morning. Wasn't HR in the day, so...
How did that make you feel? I mean, thank God you got the phone call, so you were prepared.
Yeah, I was prepared, so I rolled up early to make sure I had the element of surprise, and this guy came in, and I was sat in the desk, and he said...
I'll play there.
Yeah. He said, can you go to Staines? There's been a change of area manager within the area that I was, and can you go to Staines, the regional office? And I went to Staines, and this guy who was the new boss said, right, there's been a change. I've brought in all my own people. You can either be demoted, you can move out somewhere unheard of, miles away, or we'll give you a check now and you can do one. And I said, give me the check.
How was it the night before the worst feeling, or the day itself, or the day after?
Probably the day itself. I was angry, but there wasn't really any reason to be hauled in. But, the market had toughened, obviously, at that time, so it was tough across the board. But it wasn't an unsuccessful branch by any means, and we had a good share in profitability. But yes, it was just he didn't know me from Adam. He hadn't even bothered to meet me until that actual meeting, which he was pretty much saying, I don't care about you. You can either bugger off or.
How did you go home? I mean, I've been there, and it really just punches you in the stomach. But let's not talk about me; it's about you.
Well, I mean, I had the check, so on one hand, I'd got this check, and I
don't want to know the number, but was it a couple of months' wages, or?
I think it was probably a couple of months, and this very kindly paid my petrol to go to get sacked, and then. Yeah, and then once I'd sort of paid off, I'm going to say, I'm unemployed here, and the market had hardened a bit. So I was applying for things, and at that time in the 80s, people were changing jobs left, right. You changed jobs left, right, and centre. So you worked for somebody probably 6 months, and then you went to the next corporate, and so on and so forth. And I'd probably stayed with Countrywide 18 months, not really moved around. I'd just risen up there. So
bring it back though. How did you feel? Because I'd like, there's going to be people watching this who in the future will be made redundant.
Yeah, it was a horrible feeling. I mean, a horrible feeling for one, really, obviously, I'd fairly recently got a mortgage. So I'm thinking, how do I pay the mortgage? How do I pay the bills? I was out of work for a month, the only month that I've not worked in the whole career. It was a pretty awful month, and even though I had this check, it didn't really last. I had, mortgage and everything else at the time. So
it's more, how did you feel? How did you get to bottom and bring yourself back up?
Just low, because being unemployed with no money is not great. I was applying to places and didn't get an instant hit. I actually went back over to join Prudential Property Service at that time. I joined as, I think, actually just a neg, not even a senior neg or anything. Joined then.
So that was two demotions. From branch manager to senior?
Yeah, it was pretty much, it was a job, really. Yeah.
Did the people in the office knew that you were an ex-branch manager?
Yeah.
Did they treat you any differently?
No. But it was, I rose, fairly quickly within. I mean, Prudential at the time, so corporate at the time, there was all sorts going on. So Prudential Property Services had a thing called sales associate, and you went off to be trained how to sell endowments. So their whole was becoming less and less estate agency based almost, and tried to just sell other things. They then sold out to Woolwich Property Services. Ironically, I just got a job with Woolwich Property Services as their branch manager in Teddington, and I'd been working with my mate who ran the Teddington office, and then all of a sudden Woolwich had 2 offices in Teddington, and clearly only wanted one, so I actually ended up as a senior neg.
And your mate was...
And my mate stayed on as...
This is the same mate that from a couple of...
No, different person, but he stayed on as the manager, and we had a great times. It was personal commission, so it was pretty cutthroat stuff, but it was, it was all good times.
I mean, the early 90s were it was not end of the world stuff, but it was hard work. You had to earn your money, didn't you?
Yeah, the market had changed. It started to go downhill badly.
Some people say, I call it more like a doldrums, where every sale you had to get, you had to earn it. It didn't just whack it on Rightmove. Well, we didn't have Rightmove at that time, did we, at 94?
We didn't. Really, people weren't coming in the offices. It was all, you generated it. Obviously, properties were coming on by the bucket load. You had a register of quite a number to work your way through.
What did you learn that's helped you in more recently at that time?
It's all about being proactive and getting, picking up the phone, speaking to people, on things with all the emails, WhatsApps and bits and pieces nowadays. We perhaps have forgotten the art of actually picking up the phone and speaking to people.
Is that what you try to instill in your team?
Yeah. Communication is key. And also, going back to the applicant box, we have got to be on top of speaking to people and understanding the customer, both seller and buyer, in terms of, what they're looking for, and get to know them. Yeah.
You moved to Black Horse in 94. Why did you go?
So 94, first child came along, and we were renting at that time. We'd sold and we're renting in Hampton Hill, and decided to move back up north to where I was from. Parents, childcare.
Was your wife from the north, or
No, she was from Derby areas.
Okay, so this came from the countryside.
Mm.
Was it an easy move to go back up to
It was easy for me, yeah. But it was great when I started with Black Horse. So I ran 2 offices, which were at Yarm and Stokesley, which is where I am still now. And my first managers meeting, I looked like some sort of radical because at the time we were still advertising in Gazette, and they used to put the paper, and they used to put the full address on the advert, had the full 31 Queens Road, Stokesley, etc. And we don't put the address on. Everyone can canvass you. Canvass? What do you want about? And then my other radical idea was when the property went under offer, we should put a sold board on it straight away. So we've advertised on the fact that we're selling stuff. Oh no, we don't put sold boards on until the last day. I was a new age radical as soon as I joined Black Horse in the north. Yeah.
Had you lost your Teesside accent by then?
I didn't really have. When I go to properties now, in Stokesley, which where I was born, people will say, "Oh, where are you from?" Stokesley. Yeah.
Do you think you got that? Yeah, because it's not that you haven't got. I'm trying to work out what sort of accent you have, and you haven't got a normal.
Well, my parents haven't got necessarily northern accent.
Must be a boarding school. So are you? Is that?
But if I'm in the south, people think probably I do have more of a northern, but maybe I don't.
Is that they call them Mackhams, or is that a bit further north?
Oh, it's slightly further north. Yeah, we're Teesside. Yeah.
Is that famous for Parmos?
Absolutely. Yeah, home of the Parmo.
Ladies and gentlemen, it's battered chicken breast with bechamel sauce on, and then toppings of your choice. Absolutely,
extremely low in calories and very good for the diet. Yeah,
they are truly amazing.
With chips, just to make sure you're fully loaded.
So you were there for 10 years. Did you enjoy your time?
Yeah, great time. Black Horse was. I thought Black Horse was probably one of the better corporate players.
So this was late 20s, early 30s.
So this is 94.
So you were in your...
Yes, I was. Yeah. Joined in 94, and then in 1999, Black Horse sold out to Bradford and Bingley. Yep. Who again, actually, I thought made a pretty good fist of the corporate. Branding was good. Market 94 94, 97 was a bit of a tough. The market had caught up from the south and become a bit tougher in the north. We had 200 odd properties on the books per office average at that time, so you were kind of big on listing stuff, but the sales were hard going. At that time, Bradford and Bingley were not one of the 4 or 5 players that had bought or created Rightmove. So where my competitors were saying, "Oh, we're going to put you on this thing called the internet," and I was saying, "Never last. Don't worry about that crap. Let's get you in the paper." And by the way, it cost you £35. And then Bradford and Bingley sort of.
Because that was the day. Those are the days where you did sell advertising.
Yeah, I mean, I often felt that the girls that were from me at the time, we probably spent most of the week. The paper was a Thursday for the copy, and we probably spent most of the week phoning people up and saying, "We'd like to go in the paper for 35." Also, we did sell houses, and then so then I sort of was saying to people, let's not worry about the internet. It's garbage. It's not a thing. Let's get you in the paper.
Now I know you started Rosebery Newhouse in 2005. But you wouldn't have just started overnight just saying, "I'm going to open a new branch." When did the first spark kick off where you think, "Actually, I can do this myself"?
It came about. I tried and probably, should have done it earlier is the honest answer, but tried and wanted perhaps to set up on your own, either capital-wise, didn't have it, or maybe wanted to do it with someone else for sort of sharing that responsibility. And then in end of 2004, Bradford and Bingley announced they were selling out, and they sold out to Countrywide.
Who you previously...
Who I would who I never would work for again. So, and at that time, I met a business partner who had a financial services business, and he had said, "Let's talk about setting up." So it kind of came at the right time.
Person?
I sold him a number of houses, sold houses for him, sold on some houses. He had a financial services business in Stokesley, and we happened to have a coffee, and he said, "I'm thinking of doing other things," and so estate agency was one of them. Just happened to really coincide with Countrywide starting to come on the scene, and so within a matter of months, really, we'd sort of put a plan together. I gave notice, and
can you remember the day you put your notice in?
Yeah. I mean, the Countrywide was in a little bit of turmoil at the time. The in Teesside, my offices in Yarm and Stokesley were probably one of a few profitable branches. A number of other people had left across the years and set up, and they pretty much put them on garden leave like that. They came to me and said, "Oh, we're not putting you on garden leave. We want you to work your notice." So I said, "No problem," and then did all the appointments and suggested that there were other alternatives available to them. And then when the signage went up on the office, obviously sort of word got out, and then when I turned up one morning, they were there. They were there with the box to say, "On your way, son." So so I kind of left with joy, and it all began.
Can you remember the first property you put on the market with your own name on the board?
Yeah, remember the first property was sold. It was skin specialist in Teesside. Lives locally still see it. So yeah, 14 The Avenue, first house we sold.
You always remember your first property, don't you?
Yeah. First paycheck.
Was it wise to go to business with a business partner?
At that time, yes. There was
Is his first in the business?
He has a share. He's not active in the business or anything, but still a share. Yeah, I think it was comfort. Yeah.
Would you recommend it to someone?
A little bit depends. I mean, it's not cheap to, people.
How it is house to feed, haven't you?
A little bit, but nowadays, I think you've got the self-employed model as an option, but even as and you perhaps didn't need some of the things that we needed at the time, as in an office and all these extra costs. And you maybe don't need some of those things solely, but even so, you do need a fair amount of capital behind you.
Yes.
We had 3 children, house mortgage, etc. So I would say it was a sort of a little bit of a comfort blanket.
If the self-employed model had been around at the time, do you think you might have gone down that route?
Possibly. I mean, I think it's difficult in a way, and self-employed's fine. But and we perhaps come to it, but we've been through a bit of a process of a similar-ish nature. But I don't think unless you've got some form of credit, behind you, you can simply wake up one day and say, "I'm going to be a self-employed estate agent in wherever." I personally think you need some sort of credit behind you.
When you say credit, what do you...
Well, people know who you are, bit of trust in what you're doing, and waking up one day and saying, "I'm going to be an estate agent," isn't necessarily...
No, it's whether you would have, today in 2025, you could either go down the self-employed route, which is no office, working out your bedroom, or a physical high street branch. But then you've got all your right move costs. At least you keep every pound, but you have, self-employed model, you have to give away a third of your fee up to a certain level.
Yeah, I mean,
hindsight's a beautiful thing.
And honestly, I like working with other people. So we've got a great...
So does it really matter which one you went down? You just want...
Not really. It's worked out fine. It's 20 years this coming few weeks since it happened. It's not all been bed of roses by any means. But...
Well, I mean, a lot of agents that have sat in where you are have said that 2008 was a real sticky time with the credit crunch. Did you have to make anyone redundant?
We didn't make anyone redundant. We'd opened our second office quite quickly. First was in 2005, second was in 2006. We obviously had a very good 06 and we had a very good 07. We started lettings in 07, which turned out...
How did you open a second office? Because they say that's a real tricky one to have.
It would always be the master plan. So where I'd run Black Horse agencies was Yarm and Stokesley, and so the first office was in Stokesley. The master plan really was to have opened Yarm, which we did, because I lived in that neck of the woods. We still had quite a decent presence. I'd already taken a number of properties in the areas that I'd worked that we looked after. And really at that time, it was all about opening other branches. That was the model. And so the second office was always the plan, a year in, which we did.
Because it's opening a second branch is real tricky, isn't it?
Yeah, and it worked. I mean, as it happened, the market was super busy. So I mean, it worked fab. We were mega busy. We had a really good high street presence. We were doing lots of business. 06 turned out to be a good year. 07 turned out to be a better year. Lettings turned out to be a total saving grace. 08, we got to April of 08, and we were still busy. We were still saying to people, I don't know what all this rubbish is about, and the papers really started talking it down, and then clearly the banking and everything else. And then we had a 08, 09, we had a really, sticky patch. Our staff stayed with us. They took less commission. Director-wise, we probably weren't taking, as much salary as we would like to. We sort of survived.
When did you open your third branch? And you eventually had 4, didn't you?
So we had years to 4 eventually. 2010.
So things could have been that bad to open a third one.
And the third one, I mean, we'd kind of agreed to open it. We bought the building, so
you had to do it.
Yeah, and when we were, I mean, as it happened, the fourth one turned out to be similar. The sort of cost of refurbishing that office and getting it ready and knowing that you were going to staff it with no immediate income was a little bit scary, but we ploughed ahead. And then when we opened the fourth office, it was similarly got that cost, that extra cost.
A lot of people say it's quite hard work. If you're in one branch, you're not running the other. How did you ensure that everyone was singing off the same hymn sheet? Because that's a real tough one.
Yeah, and I think that becomes tougher as you scale up, for sure. So it's really about the people. I mean, I've been lucky. The people that work for me, a number of them have worked for me for 20 years. We've got staff that have been, so they're, trusted people.
How do you retain staff that long to almost run it as if it was their own business?
And they do. That is, that is very much how it is. I think it's a difficult one. When we had a bit of a change subsequently, I think if we were honest, there were staff that we probably had kept that we shouldn't have really kept. We allowed things that, but actually the majority of staff have been with us a long time.
Yeah, but you didn't answer my question. The question I was saying is what have you done okay, let me ask it in a different way. What have you done as a boss or a leader with your colleagues to ensure that they take ownership and accountability to almost run it as if it's their own business?
The philosophy is there, so they understand what it is we try and do. They worked with me, so we when we said open a second office, I was still doing predominantly appointments for it, or with the manager, who then became the manager. But the offices aren't far away. I'm still actively around.
Where did you learn that from? Was that from your mum and dad, or?
Not necessarily. I mean, there's a bit of everything, isn't the corporate world? I mean, all of now perhaps look back on corporate as, or if I'm competing with corporates now, I'd be thinking, you're not worthy. But actually,
because if you don't mind me saying, you're not a normal traditional estate agent in terms of your outlook.
No, maybe not. But actually, no, probably not. Because
if you don't mind me saying, most estate agents tend to wear their ego on their t-shirt, and they kind of look at you have something which is very rare in a estate agency, which is hung up with humility.
I mean, I'd like to think I care. What really annoys me is that a estate agency has such a bad reputation.
Yeah.
I remember when we opened as an independent business, I guess our main ethos was perhaps to change how people thought, estate agents should be. So, somebody says to you at a dinner party or whatever, what do you do? And you sort of utter the words estate agent to a lull. I'm not really sure why that's the case. We have, not just a few Google reviews. We have hundreds of Google reviews that say that we've done a great job, trust all those words that you want to hear. Yet estate agency is still a dirty word.
Is that where you get your kicks from? helping others.
Yeah.
The money's about, you know, if you don't mind me saying, having 4 branches, there's a little bit of ego in there, though, isn't there? And what's that? I mean, you haven't got now. We're going to come on to that in a second.
But there was, but it's also I was a part of growing the business. I mean, it didn't necessarily become more profitable, ironically, by having more offices. But
Isn't that interesting?
but equally, I personally I care about the people that work for me, and some of the things we'll talk, about were difficult, really difficult. So I care about the people that work for me. I care about the job that we do for people. I live in Stokesley, so I want to walk down the high street and go to the supermarket or whatever and bump into people and that's how they remember me. I don't want them to think, well, that's the...
And it's a beautiful part of the world, isn't it?
Yeah, it's happens on North Yorkshire, top end of the North Yorkshire moors, then into Teesside, and all their Teesside, has probably got a sort of bad rep as an area because it's lots of
there's a lot of industrial but I tell you what, just come back, beautiful part of the world.
Yeah, fabulous. Yeah.
I was on holiday there a few months.
You were indeed, yeah, not far away. Yeah,
you got to 2023. And I can remember you contacted me and said, we've got 4 offices and I'm thinking of going into a hub. I think you ended up with 1 high street office and 1 hub.
Yep. So we now...
What's the catalyst behind that?
The catalyst, in total honesty, was cash. So we were a successful business in relation to market share, activity, most things. I think when you've got scale and you've got one office that's suddenly not doing as well, or one office, you can have this sort of one rod to the other. We had 3 offices that were in a relatively small, as a station tends to be, relatively small postcode area, 5 miles of each other. And we had these 3 offices, and we were starting in 23 market. Obviously, we'd had a lovely period post-COVID, and we were getting this scenario where our cost base was there and our exchanges were a little bit, up and down. And so, a month that didn't hit the target for exchanges, led you in. So it wasn't that we were in trouble, but cash, became a little bit up and down. Absolutely no help from the banks, even though we sort of asked for short term, things like that, So it became, in honesty, there were some months that were a little bit squeaky bum that we didn't like. It was very stressful. So we were then thinking, do we need these offices? And we had some. I would say naturally we didn't. We could have operated without them in some locations, and we had Yarm that was our second office that I felt was perhaps slightly more high street bias, and my manager was, can we really do it with no high street office? But
that sounds really good that your manager was saying we could do this.
Well, he was a bit of both. He was, can we do it? He was on board, and with great respect to him, he was very much on board with what we were going to do. He had massive reservations that we were leaving the high street. And I'm totally honest, I'm a born and bred high street agent. Nobody had more reservations than me, but we had to do something. We couldn't just have offices draining us, really, and be stressed out about it. So we decided we were going to close 3. That was June 23. We decided we were going to close the 3 offices and we were going to move them into one central on a business park. And
why not close all 4?
Stokes, it was the original. We owned the building. And Stokesley is a market town. An awful lot of our clientele are older. We have enough trouble getting them to do email and WhatsApp, let alone anything else. So we do get people coming in. Actually, when we opened Stokesley, it's not in the high street. It's just literally, and Stokesley's not massive. It's in the high street. And all our competitors were very much, they're not on the high street, even though we were just slightly tucked away. But actually, ironically, they still say now, they're not in the high street. And the other offices, because of the postcode areas they covered, they were strategically, Stokesley's North Yorkshire, the other 3 were Teesside. And so it made sense for those 3 to be amalgamated. And we had good staff. We did go through some redundancy, which was a really wholly unpleasant experience, saying goodbye to people. But
Is that the first time you made people redundant?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
What advice would you give to someone making them redundant?
Be strong. You've got to go through the consultation. I did it all. I didn't, want anyone else to come in and do it for me. We had HR people, but I didn't want them to be the sort of faceless. I wanted to look them in the eye and tell them,
So how many did you have to let go?
We let 4 people
Out of a total number of...
17 at the time.
Okay. You moved into a hub.
Yeah.
So you got one high street office and one hub.
Yeah.
How's business been?
Fabulous. So we have 5 staff in the hub, 2 valuers, 3 negotiators, and we opened effectively probably opened in September 23, and then as we closed last year, we'd done a little bit more actually business from that one office than we'd done from having 3 high street offices. So we did have the advantage. I mean, when we did it, you put together something for us to spin the positive notes on it, which great. We also did have a pretty strong reputation as an agent. We weren't cold by any means.
It just shows you that the high street is not the be-all and end-all, but you have to do other things in other areas to make up for it.
Yeah, we had one in that time. We had only one client, but we did very much hit it straight on. We rang all the clients to say this is what we're doing. We gave it the positive spin, why we're doing it, and they were very much on board. And actually, a lot of people were saying to us at the time, "Yeah, great idea." And I don't know why I've done it before. And so I think we had one person leave us. Obviously, our competitors were, hitting us left, right, and centre with they're not on the high street, but we retained. But we'd also built up at that point in time. We started our social media journey early, I would say. Excuse me. We started that early, and so we had a very strong social media market as well.
So you were being called out to just as many vowels,
Yeah.
if not more, because you're strong on your social media. And then what about? I'm sure that your competitors used it against you, didn't they?
Yeah, they were very much.
So what did you use to bat that back?
Very much service. I mean, I genuinely believe, and so do my valuers, that we will give people the honest figure. We don't go into property with the view of spinning the dream that doesn't exist. So but actually at the moment we are experiencing an awful lot of properties coming to us that we're the second agent, not the first. Big price reductions, So that stat that Rightmove used to have of sort of 60%, which is 2019, 60% of sell with the second agent. Well, that sort of dropped off a cliff in post-COVID. You didn't, and if you needed a second agent, it wasn't a great property, and that's perhaps now coming to pass. So so I do believe that giving the right advice, it comes back to you.
And did you actually meet it head on at the appointment? My competitors might say I'm off the high street.
Yeah, very much so. We haven't, there's no fee drop or discussion around that. If anything, we put our fees up. We went in with a clear strategy, which we already had. We've always had in a way, and others. The difficulty is in a way keeping up a strategy because strategies can be copied. Social. You had the internet, which was a leveler for most agents. But everyone did it differently. You then had social media. Social media started to become a little bit more of a leveler. People copy what you do. Yes, do it as well, but they still do it. And so, we know that people kind of copy our strategy, and it's trying to make that strategy a strategy with service provided.
So if someone was saying to you tomorrow, I'm thinking of taking my high street branches and having a hub, your advice would be prepare 6 or 12 months before with social media to really ramp it up. Make sure your team's on board and they get it and they're going to have a wobble. Do it, but make sure that you've got a great strategy to keep the team on board. Head the competition off at the pass so it's not a surprise. Be proud of the fact you've done it, not hide it. Was there anything else to add?
Know your high street. I mean, I'm not advocating that every single high street is going to be the right high street to suddenly depart.
Let's be honest, how often do we go down the high streets? I mean, people's eyeballs are on this, aren't they? So it is all about that.
Yeah, and we had a prominent high street position in Yarm, and it is a bustling high street. So it was a it was the risky one to be leaving. And actually, another agent has opened in our office, or old office. But actually, we didn't get an awful lot of people coming in. The majority of people that came in actually were probably for lettings.
Good stuff. Back end of 24, you won the Best Estate Agent Guide. Now we're going to, for the whole UK, we're going to talk about that in a separate video. But just give me a taster. What did it feel like?
Absolutely great. We enter awards. This one we didn't enter. We found ourselves in it, which was even better. And we had just won the regional award. We were pretty pleased with ourselves with that. So we had our photos taken with celebs and so all great, having a lovely day. And then, in total honesty, our train was getting close, and we were thinking it's time to bail out of here. And then they sort of bought up the nominees, and we were in it, and we were sit ourselves back down again. And then when it flashed up as us, well, we were.
Did you catch your train?
We just the same made the train by literally minutes. Got a taxi straight from Battersby, and in the taxi the whole way to the station. Mum, guess what? We won the award. So yeah, it was a great day. Yeah.
In a separate video, we're going to talk about that in a bit more detail and how you've used it to your advantage. John, thank you for your time today, and thank you for watching.